Shalom. First and foremost, I want to start by giving our praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Rakah HaKodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well and teach well, and peace and blessings to the hopeful elect, pushing this word with all truth, righteousness, and sincerity. Shalom, shalom. This is Brother Corner Wath with another quick lesson to the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. And this evening, I wanted to touch on this article in Natural News, right? And as we know, the scriptures say, the least of the flock shall draw them out. But I wanted to dive into that a little bit deeper, right, in relation to the ADL, right, the Anti-Defamation League that Amalek uses to spearhead his anti-sim campaigns, and AIPAC, right, this is the American Israeli, was it American Israeli Public Affairs Committee, right? So both of these entities pretty much run countermeasures, damage control, right? And the way that the AIPAC works is they operate on a more offensive terms as well, right? By getting these different political lobbyists, right, working their way into Congress, right, so they can get different things passed, right, in the interest of the state of Israel, right. So, but just touching in this article, it reads: AIPAC slams Georgia Rep Green over her comments about Gaza genocide, right. So, as we know, the famine of the word is on its way, and this is going to be a major factor, right. Is anybody speaking contrary to the agendas of AIPAC or the ADL, right, or these globalists as a whole, right? So, just reading a few points in here. It says the pro-Israel lobby group AIPAC issued fundraising email criticizing Rep. Major Reed Taylor Greene for calling Israel's actions in Gaza a genocide, which they are, right? They're trying to genocide and take over that entire land, right? But they claim it's a holy war of sorts, right? But it says labeling her remarks a betrayal of American values, and that in itself shows you how deeply rooted AIPAC is in American society, how deeply rooted the ADL is in American society, how much influence they have, right, over the country as a whole, right? They're really the puppet masters, if you will, right there. And that's why when you read the scriptures in Jeremiah that speak on the least of the flock drawing them out, that's why they have so much power, is because Israel and America are in lockstep with each other, man, right? It says Green's outspoken criticism of Israel, including accusations of genocide and citing Gaza's humanitarian crisis, right? Because these are war crimes that are being committed, right? But nobody wants to take the initiative to stop it, because they know that this would be the beginning of World War, you know. It's a lot. It says the International Court of Justice has ordered Israel to prevent potential genocide, while UN reports detail over 61,000 Palestinian deaths. Green cited these to support her claims, but AIPAC dismissed her statements as disgusting lies. And that's what they're going to continue to do, right, is to pass the blame, right, to avoid any type of accountability, because they're being exposed, right, on all-time levels. We have the reports of the Al Jazeera journalists that were killed in that bombing, right, and they're claiming that some of the journalists had ties to Hamas, right? So they're gonna use any type of narrative to accomplish their goals, and that's why as part of the persecution that's gonna come right upon the believers, because if you're speaking against their agenda, then you're gonna be seen as an enemy, man. Let's get that real quick, right? Let's see here. Isaiah 59. And then we'll go back. It's Isaiah 59 and verse 14. And judgment is turned away backward, and justice standeth far off. For truth is fallen in the street, and equity cannot enter. Yea, truth faileth, and he that departeth from evil maketh himself a prey. Right? And to depart, you are also speaking out against it, man. Right? So you're making yourself, vulnerable to attacks, both in the spirit and in the physical, man. Right? When you come to serve Yahweh Shemel Shai, right? When you come to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptation. It says, and the Lord saw it, and it displeased him that there was no judgment. So this is what we're seeing take place in the earth right now, right? As those who are speaking against the system are being made a prey, right? Right? So you'll be a social pariah, and ultimately, your life may be taken, It says, continuing on, the American, that's good, oh, that was good. The American Israeli Public Affairs Committee has launched a fierce attack against Rep. Major Reed Taylor Greene, denouncing her remarks against Tel Aviv's genocide in the Gaza Strip. The influential pro-Israel lobbying group issued this rebuke in a fundraising email to supporters on August 7th. AIPAC condemned Georgia Congresswoman for echoing what is called anti-Israel smears, reiterating that her remarks are a betrayal of American values. So why would anything about Israel be, linked to American values if they didn't have, major influence, right, in the system of Babylon the Great, known as America, man, right? Let me see. It says, that's a lot. The group accused Greene of distorting facts and aligning with what is termed as an anti-Israel squad. It compared the Congresswoman to her progressive colleagues, such as Rep. Rashida Tlaib and Rep. Ilan Omar. The two Democrats are both vocal opponents of Israel on Capitol Hill. The escalating dispute highlights deepening divisions within the Republican Party over U.S. support for Israel amid growing international condemnation of its military campaign in Gaza. So the people are speaking out against this, man, right? It says, it is the most, that's a lot. It says, Greene, an outspoken ally of President Donald Trump, has repeatedly described Israel's military offensive as genocide, citing the humanitarian catastrophe and mass starvation in Gaza. It is the most truthful and easiest thing to say that October 7th in Israel was horrific, she wrote in a post on X. But so is the genocide, humanitarian crisis, and starvation happening in Gaza, right? Because they use that double standard, right? That victim mentality. Whatever happened on October 7th, right, they used to justify the killing of tens of thousands of people, man, right? It says, the clash comes as mounting evidence, including reports from the United Nations, human rights organizations, and genocide scholars, paints a grim picture of conditions in Gaza, where Israel's siege has killed over 61,000 Palestinians and displaced nearly the entire population, right? And the UN, NATO, right? This is gonna be another separating point, right? It's gonna be Israel and America, and then everybody else, man, right? Because you're gonna have to pick a side, right? These nations are gonna have to choose who they're gonna side with, and they're ultimately gonna turn their backs on America, and America's gonna have to come to the defense of these Israelis, man, right? It says Greene retaliated on the same day, accusing the group of operating as an unregistered foreign lobbyist for Tel Aviv, and that's what they are, right? It says the truth is AIPAC needs to register as a foreign lobbyist by U.S. law because they are representing the secular government of nuclear armed Israel 100%. The historically bipartisan AIPAC has increasingly directed campaign funds against critics of Israel, right? So they direct their entire campaigns toward people who speak out against these Amalekites, man. Spending tens of millions to defeat progressive incumbents in recent election cycles. However, Greene's strong support in her Georgia district, where she won by nearly 30 points in 2022, makes her a formidable target. The controversy reflects broader shifts within the GOP, where a faction aligned with Trump's America First ideology has grown more vocal in questioning unconditional aid to Israel, right? And if you go into, there's an article, I can't remember the name of it, Lord will I can put in the description, but it speaks on the history of AIPAC and American relations. And more or less, it was an agreement, right, that regardless of what Israel's actions were, America would always be there, to stand for them, man, right? Like I said, unconditionally. So they can. That's why they can act with impunity, right? Because they know as soon as somebody else, picks up the torch, America's right behind them, man. It reads, jumping down, as tensions escalate, the debate over U.S. foreign policy in Gaza continues to fracture political alliances. So, for Green, the fight with AIPAC underscores her unorthodox alignment with progressive critiques of Israel. Despite backlash, the Congresswoman's stance resonates with an increasing number of Americans skeptical of the U.S. involvement abroad, right? Because the people are tired, right, of assisting these nations, right? It's compassion fatigue, right? They're sick of having to deal, right, on behalf of these Amalekites when they're the ones who are causing the majority of the trouble, And a few months ago, we had an article right here from April 11th. It says Israeli lobbyists boast of controlling U.S. national security policy in leaked AIPAC audio. Right, so this is where they're at, man. They have major control in Washington D.C., man. Major control over the influence of the government. Right, they can get policies passed. They can get things put into law. Right, so that this country is moving at the whim and the will of Amalek, man, and it goes for the ADL as well, right? Now I searched this on ChatGPT, and it said here, parallel the dangers of AIPAC and ADL influence in American politics with Jeremiah 50 and 45, with Israel being the least of the flock and America being drawn into World War III, right? Now it says here, and we'll read the verse. It says, therefore hear the counsel of the Lord that he hath taken against Babylon, and his purpose that he hath proposed against the land of the Chaldeans. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. Right? Now it says here, prophetic parallel. If we apply this text symbolically, Israel as the least of the flock and America in the role of modern Babylon, you get a striking parallel that concerns about AIPAC and the ADL's influence, right? It says the least of the flock shall draw them out. In the ancient context, least of the flock refers to smaller, seemingly weaker nation or group of actions, or group whose actions provoke a much larger power into military engagement. And that's what we're seeing in regards to Israel, Hamas, Israel and Hezbollah, Israel, Iran, right? They're about to pull America into this global war, man, right? They're already receiving aid through funding and then through military backing, That whole, what's it called? The Shield of David, the missile defense system, right? The Iron Dome, all these things are funded by the U.S. military, right? It says, In a modern application, Israel, geographically small, militarily powerful for its size, yet dependent on U.S. support, could, through its conflicts, draw out America into a broader war. AIPAC, AIPAC's influence in Congress, securing unconditional military aid, lobbying for hardline stances on Iran and Hezbollah, because we know Trump is in the pocket of these lobbyists, man. Right? They already have him, right, under control. So he's gonna move according to their whim. You know, it says um, lobbying for hardline stances on Iran and Hezbollah could set the stage for U.S. entanglement if Israel escalates with these adversaries. The ADL's political pressure in framing criticism of Israeli policies as anti-Semitism can narrow U.S. policy debate, removing diplomatic off ramps that might otherwise prevent escalation, right? Because they're gonna frame these things as hate crimes, man, and anybody who speaks out against it is gonna face, a harsh persecution, man, right? That's why they censor the censorship is going out in the manner it is. That's why you hear quotes like, we're losing the information war, right? Now let me get this here real quick. It's like it. Isaiah 29 and 20. It reads, "For the terrible one is brought to naught," right? "And the scorner is consumed, and all that watch for iniquity are cut off. That make a man an offender for a word," right? And this is what's going to happen. And this is what we're seeing happening already. This is, right? That woman spoke out against them for the genocide that they're taking place in. But how much more, right? The prophets, right? That are truthfully exposing this devil, man, right? His own tongue is falling upon himself. That's why he's speaking in this manner, right? But how much more the men of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, right? It says that make a man an offender for a word, and lay a snare for him that reproveth in the gate, right? So they're going to, imprison you for your opinions against these matters, man. Right? They're gonna frame that anti-Sem narrative, right, as hate speech, right? Anybody who's not willing to go to war on behalf of the state of Israel is going to be looked at as a hate criminal, man. You know, it says, and lay a snare for him that reproveth in the gate, and turn aside the just for a thing of naught, right? So this is what we're seeing taking place, you know. So going back, it reads, the counsel against Babylon. In Jeremiah, the Most High's counsel leads to Babylon's downfall through alliances and conflicts it cannot sustain. And we're seeing that right now. America, just as ancient Rome, has spread themselves thin, right? And now they have weakening alliances with the nations that they once trusted, you know? Actually, let's get that in Isaiah 47, right? This is Isaiah 47 and 15. It reads, we'll start reading the NLT. Isaiah 47 and 15. "And all your friends, those with whom you've done business since childhood, will go their own ways, turning a deaf ear to your cries." Right? So they have no more allies, man. Right? As the scriptures talk about, the beast shall hate the whore. Right? Let's get that. Revelation 17 and 16. "And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and eat her flesh, and burn her with fire." right? So this is what we're seeing, right? I think there's another one in let me see. Past it. But the point being, right? These nations are about to come upon Babylon the Great, man, with a with fury, right? Because they're in the back pocket of these Amalekites, you know. Yeah, let's go back. So going back, it reads, in the modern analogy, America's council could be shaped, at least in part, by the advocacy and political influence of groups that prioritize Israel's security above all other strategic considerations, right? That's Jeremiah 50 and 45, man, right? The least of the flock, right, is pulling America in, right, regardless of, right, what strategic advantages or disadvantages they may face, man, right? It says, it's like the risk, this risk America making policy decisions that ultimately weaken its own global position. Yep, and that's what's happening, right? The beast is hating the whore. It says, drawn into destructive conflict, just as Babylon in Jeremiah's day was drawn into military engagements that hastened its destruction, America could be pulled into a Middle East war that spirals into a great power confrontation with Russia, China, and Iran involved. And that's what's happening right now, man. Right? If Israel strikes Iran preemptively or engages Hezbollah in a full-scale war, AIPAC-backed policy positions could commit America to military involvement, while ADL-backed speech controls could mute domestic opposition until it's too late, right? And that muting of domestic opposition, right, is gonna start with the prophets, man, right? The famine of the word taking place, because we're the ones who are really calling this man out, right? Let me get that. The gates of the nobles, right? This is Isaiah 30. That's like 13 and 2. I will start in 1. It reads, the burden of Babylon, which Isaiah the son of Amos did see, right? That burden, that weighty matter, right? That something that causes great emotional distress, right? That's why we see AIPAC and the ADL moving in this way, right? You know, that's why the scriptures talk about in Job, his stomach shall know no ease, roughly paraphrasing. Um, Verse 2, lift ye up a banner upon the high mountain, exalt the voice unto them, shake the hand, right? So we're exalting the voice, right, on the highways and byways through these videos, exposing this devil, man, right? You know, showing the world his true character, his true colors, right? Even more than he already is himself. That they may go into the gates of the nobles, right? So the gates of the nobles, right? When you this in the NLT. It says they march into the places of the high and mighty. Right, this word is going up to, right, these elites, to these globalists, right, to these high-ranking Amalekite figures, right, to these AIPAC representatives, to these ADL spokespeople, right. They all know of the prophets, man, right. They all know this word is going out, and that's why they're moving in such a hasty manner, man, because they know that they have but a short time. Going back, it says this dynamic mirrors the prophetic image. The smaller entity, least of the flock, initiates a situation that leads to the greater power into a ruinous path, right? America's ruin is attached to, right, what's happening over there in the so-called Middle East, right? It says, point 4, habitation made desolate. In prophetic terms, this symbolizes national ruin. And we're already watching the national decay, you know? So once the military starts to go, right, this country is in complete turmoil, man, right? But they're going to have to do that to establish or to assist in the establishment, right, of this new world order, man, right? They're going to have to do these things to bring that chaos, what's the word? Order out of chaos in order to establish the MOTB, man, right? To have that mark be looked at as a form of salvation, so that people feel the need to take it, right? It reads, in modern terms, a catastrophic world war could devastate America's economically, socially, militarily, fulfilling the pattern of a superpower undone by overreach and entanglement in another's battles. And that happened to the pagan Roman Empire, man, right? They stretched themselves too thin, right? They watched the economy begin to crumble, right? Because the value of the money was less. And then, the ultimate civil unrest that took place in the as a result, right? So it says, summary: Jeremiah 50 and 45's imagery fits the modern danger, right? Israel, least of the flock, small but strategically aggressive, right? You see Netanyahu out here, right, moving reckless right now, man, right, to the point where they have a warrants out pretty much for his arrest, right, for global war crimes, man. It says AIPAC and ADL influence mechanisms by which U.S. political will is shaped toward unconditional support. Right, they're bending the will of this devil, or of these American Edomites, right, to have unconditional support towards Amalek, man. That's why you see people coming to back for him. That's why these Christians, feel the need to come to their defense, man. Right? It says America equals Babylon, drawn out into a war, World War III, that leads to its own destruction. Right? And that's what we're seeing take place, man. So articles like this one here, Israeli lobbyists boast of controlling U.S. national security policy and leaked AIPAC audio. And then even more recent, AIPAC slamming Georgia Rep. Green over her comments about Gaza genocide, right? These are just more and more signs of the least of the flock, right? Pulling America, right, into these issues, man, right? Showing how much control they have over the reins of America right now, how much influence they have, right, over the politics and the social minds of the people, man, to where they feel the need to come to the aid of Amalek, man. And if they don't, right, Amalek is just gonna force the issue even more, man, right? Brothers have gone into the Samson option, right, and things of that nature, where it's pretty much a scorched earth policy, right, where they destroy everything, you know. So this is what we're seeing take place, right? And these two entities, AIPAC and the ADL, right, are being used to infiltrate American society, right, to forward these things along, man. Ultimately through the will of Yahweh Shem Shai, forward in prophecy along, right? So Lord willing, that was edifying through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Shai. I'm going to close by giving our praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rechah HaKodash, double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, rule well and teach well, and peace and blessings to the hopeful elect, pushing this word with all truth, righteousness, and sincerity. Shalom, shalom, Kwame Sharala, and the Bible Ball. Shalom.